Symphytum uplandicum, not to be confused with Symphytum officinalis. Who doesn't like to get their tongue round a good Latin name? Yes, we're talking comfrey, a wondrous gift from nature to the gardener. Here at Dalefoot, we're known for not letting the grass grow beneath our feet. In fact, we are letting the grass grow, along with comfrey. The plant most commonly referred to and used in gardens is Russian comfrey, Symphytum uplandicum, a naturally occurring hybrid of two wild species, common comfrey, Symphytum officinale, and prickly comfrey, Symphytum asperum. A member of the borage family, comfrey is native to Europe and Asia, and there are 40 recorded species throughout that region. Let's take a step back for a minute to remember what we know about comfrey. It has quite a fascinating history. Comfrey has been cultivated as a healing herb since at least 400 BC. The earliest written reference to comfrey was in the Naturalis Historia of Pliny the Elder, and it's one of the most important testimonies of ancient phytomedicine. In Book 26, chapter 137, comfrey is mentioned for the first time for the treatment of bruises and sprains, and a syrup of the herb or a decoction of its root are used. From around the same time, Dioscorides' Materia Medica is the oldest Materia Medica in Europe. Created independently from Pliny's work, it has been shaping European and Arabic phytotherapy for nearly 2,000 years. The more familiar Culpeper mentions comfrey in the 1600s in the English Physician as a treatment of rheumatism and gout. How about comfrey in the garden? With a strong medicinal familiarity, when did comfrey hit the gardening radar? No doubt there will be references I haven't discovered, but I do know that this particular hybrid of comfrey, Symphytum uplandicum, came to the attention of one Henry Doubleday in the late 1800s. He widely promoted the plant as a food and forage crop. Years later, and after 2 world wars, Lawrence D. Hills continued Henry Doubleday's comfrey crusade. In the 1950s, this sterile variety of comfrey was produced to be known as Bocking 14, grown at Bocking in Essex by the Henry Doubleday Research Association. He produced many different varieties for many different uses, but Bocking 14 is probably the one that most gardeners use, and it's Bocking 14 that we grow here at Dalefoot in the Lake District. It's a member of the borage family, and Bocking 14 boasts a higher nutrient content than common comfrey. Bocking 14 is high in potassium, but also phosphorus and nitrogen, which are required for healthy plant growth, larger flowers, and bigger fruit crops. So let's get to that big question. Why comfrey here at Dalefoot? Many of you will know us as avid readers of Lawrence D. Hill's books, and our compost empire owes its roots to some of his suggestions, particularly his suggestions in relation to the use of bracken. He proclaimed there was a fortune to be made for anyone prepared to harvest and sell bracken to gardeners. We're still working on that one. So it may not surprise you that we have long considered the potential of harnessing the properties of comfrey as a compost ingredient. Comfrey tea, comfrey mulch, comfrey trench lining, and layers in the compost heap. Gardeners don't need convincing of the magic that comfrey brings to the garden. And indeed, some gardeners have found a place for a comfrey plant in their plot or patch. Like many herbs, and even weeds, their simplicity, used propitiously, can further our natural and organic approach to feeding and refreshing our soils, and in turn helps us to grow healthy, tasty vegetables and fruit and vibrant blooms. There is so much to tell you about comfrey. Comfrey is a dynamic accumulator. By this we mean it has very deep roots of up to 2 metres. These roots utilise nutrients deep in the soil that would otherwise be unavailable, be washed away by water, or just simply inaccessible to other plants. The nutrients that are deep in the soil get taken up by the roots of comfrey and are accumulated throughout the plant as leaves, stem, roots, etc. Much of these nutrients will end up in the large, plentiful leaves produced by comfrey. So when we harvest the leaves of comfrey and turn it into compost, the nutrients and minerals that comfrey has stored are made available to plants in our rich, fertile compost. One of the great qualities of comfrey is its vigour, and we mean vigour. You can take 3, 4, even 5 crops of this plant every year. And of particular significance, comfrey produces copious quantities of nutrient-dense biomass. What about those nutrients? To get a little more scientific about the nutritional value of comfrey, it's well recorded that comfrey is an excellent source of potassium, a major plant nutrient that's required by all plants in a large amount for proper growth and reproduction, fruiting and flowering. It can be seen from this table that wilted comfrey contains significantly higher quantities of potash compared to other organic fertilisers. It's similar to those other potash giants of seaweed and bracken. Aside from the essential potassium, comfrey yields a wide range of trace elements and minerals in significant amounts, all naturally available for our plants to access. So, many good reasons to consider comfrey in our composts, but like most things in life worth doing, there's always a degree of challenge. It's one thing growing a comfrey plant in your garden for your own personal use, but how do you grow enough to harvest and add to a range of composts for sale? We're talking hectares, not centimetres here, and we're talking about a sterile plant that doesn't grow from seed. Let's consider the characteristics of the comfrey plant in more detail, more specifically the Bocking 14 variety, as you have to plant out with crown divisions or root cuttings. Comfrey has a massive root or rhizome system underneath the ground, so it's possible to simply use a crown division obtained from simply putting a spade through the centre of a mature comfrey plant and transplanting the divided sections. But when you're looking to multiply plants to a field scale of hectares, that would take an awful long time. For our comfrey beds, we have taken the rhizomes of established plants and individually sectioned the root into viable cuttings. Initially, we have planted those directly into the field with, of course, a Simon Bland designed and fabricated specific machine. Excitingly, those first few acres of comfrey succeeded and grew away beautifully. But further scaling up was required. Like so many aspects of upland farming, there is no quick solution. So we've turned to hand dividing and sectioning rhizomes and planting in 9cm pots and grown on to enable thousands of plants to be planted as our initial investment, planted of course in our own compost. We plant the comfrey directly into our existing grass swards, no ploughing, rotavating or other soil disturbance, simply popping the rhizome into a slot in the field at regular spacings. We've also diversified the grass swards to benefit the growth of the comfrey, using the techniques of polyculture with nitrogen-fixing ground cover plants, clover, herblase, experimenting with some unusual combinations, all to the good. Flowering starts in late May, early June and continues until the hard frosts in late October. Russian comfrey has clusters of bell-shaped blue, purple or red-purple flowers, and the vegetative growth does not cease with the start of flowering, and the plant will add new stems continuously during the growing season. Our comfrey has provided an incredible boost to biodiversity here at Dalefoot. My bees are already enjoying the rich source of nectar and pollen, as are many other insects, and therefore the wider ecology of our farm. Depending on the age and growth of the comfrey plants, we can harvest up to 4 times a year. But we leave strips of flowering comfrey to retain connecting corridors for wildlife. And of course the insects enjoy the range of other herbs and their flowers as well. As Simon's father always said, healthy wildlife, healthy farm. Something ingrained in Simon's approach to farm and husbandry. So what do we do with our comfrey? Harvest it, using traditional haylage making techniques, mowing, wilting, baling and straight into the mix, with excess bales stored for composting throughout the year. The comfrey grows back so quickly, a good dressing of fell pony manure not only feeds the growing plant, but also helps retain a good soil structure. So, by harvesting our Dalefoot comfrey, we've been able to introduce comfrey into our mother batch of compost, harnessing its wonderful nutritional virtues and enabling gardeners to benefit without the notorious and unfortunate disbenefits of comfrey tea or even composting comfrey.